No Limit. We back, man. We are back with another No Limit Reacts. And yeah, man. Today we got Revolver versus 9mm. What are you choosing, man? Let me know in the comment section below, what are you choosing for everyday carry? And, what are you just using for around the house, just chilling? Because they both have, they both have their positives. They both have their negatives. You know what I mean? This is a question I've thought about a lot, because obviously 9mm, they depending on the weapon, it can hold a lot more ammunition. It's a lot faster. I mean, depending on unless you got the speed loaders, for the revolvers, I can't remember exactly what they're called right now, but it's the rubber thing that holds exactly the 6 bullets that you could just pop it out and put another one in. But still, I think it's a lot more manageable carrying, you can carry extra clips on your belt, just like you can carry your holster. And you just have a lot more ammunition and a lot more, with a 9mm. But I mean, I feel like, but if you don't clean it properly, if it's not lubricated properly, obviously you can have a lot of jams and stuff. So in that way, Revolver is a lot more reliable, because I feel like, if you take care of it, then things run forever. They're like all the old cars, how they used to make them. But they're a lot, they hold a lot less ammunition. Other than that, we're going to find out, man. They're going to talk about it. Let's get into it. I'm not going to hold y'all any longer. Let's go.
Revolver or 9mm? Which is the best choice for you? Which is more reliable? Which is superior? To understand these questions, first we have to understand the differences between the two weapons. Ask anyone who's ever been in a firefight and they'll tell you that anytime your weapon is not actively ready to be fired, it's as useless as a brick. As firearms were developed, militaries quickly ran into the problem of reloading. Dead time, during which the weapon was completely useless to its operator except as a club.
Imagine the black powder, bro. Imagine, take a shot and then you sit there for 5 minutes loading up another one. I know I'm exaggerating, but you're loading up and you got bullets whizzing by your head, and by the time you get another one loaded up, your shoulders like your shoulders blown off, or your leg by a damn cannon. Musket, bro.
Reloading was often a long, complicated affair that had to be carefully executed, or otherwise the weapon wouldn't fire, or at worst, seriously damage itself and potentially kill its operator. One of the first practical solutions to the dead time problem was to introduce multi-barreled weapons, which could all be prepared for firing in advance. These first weapons would allow a user to fire 2 or more barrels before having to take cover to undertake a long, complicated reload. However, the addition of multiple barrels often made weapons even harder to use accurately, already a challenging proposition until the development of rifling. Nonetheless, designs continued with weapons being created from Europe to Asia that included revolving barrels around a central axis. The first design we'd begin to recognize as a modern revolver would come in 1548, a 3-barreled matchlock pistol from Venice. The Chinese would create their own revolver-type weapon with a 5-barreled musket revolver spear in the late 16th century. In Germany, however, the idea came to gun manufacturers to reduce the weight and complexity of the weapon by making one simple switch. Instead of having multiple revolving barrels, simply make a multi-chambered cylinder preloaded with ammunition that...
Genius. Genius. This is before the magazine, so genius. And look at how reliable revolvers actually are, you know what I mean?
Would revolve in place, lining up with the weapon's single barrel every time it was ready to fire. This would be the birth of the true revolver and was revolutionary, allowing for fast, accurate fire and making for a much less cumbersome weapon. Despite their superior firepower, though, these weapons remained out of most troops' hands, with only wealthy individuals or elite troops being equipped with one of them due to the complexity and high costs of manufacturing. In 1836, American inventor Samuel Colt revolutionized the world of firearms with his invention of the infamous Colt revolver. While on a sea voyage, Colt observed sailors using the ship's
45 and 2 zigzags.
Device.
Baby, that's all we need. I know you remember that, the Colt 45, man. Iconic. If firearm.
It's used to assist sailors in hauling heavy ropes and cables, and the ratchet and pawl mechanism which was attached to it. The ratchet allowed the sailors to turn the capstan in one direction, then would fall into place behind a notch, so that if the sailors let go of the capstan, the heavy weight of the rope or cable wouldn't unwind and turn the capstan backwards, undoing all their hard work. Samuel Colt got an idea to use a similar device to provide a way for a cylinder to be rotated automatically by simply
What if I told you that buying this hoodie
cocking the trigger
could win you this truck?
cocking the gun's hammer. Prior to this, the cylinder on a firearm had to be manually rotated, which dramatically slowed the rate of fire and forced a shooter to reacquire their sight picture and proper shooting form. With Colt's revolver, a shooter could retain their form and reattain their sight picture much faster, as the weapon remained in general line of sight, and all that was needed to prepare it for further firing was the thumb. Colt's revolver instantly became world famous, with his company setting up machine shops in the US and England. To this day, Colt firearms produced 200 years ago remain as dependable as on the day they were manufactured. The first revolvers used percussion caps.
Still to this day, by the way. Still, a leading operational weapon, man, operational firearm, but still, you got a lot. There's so much variety nowadays. It's like I said, though, I feel like the revolvers, it's more reliable overall. But, what do you want, 6 rounds or you want 30? And you can carry, 3 more of those 30s and have, 100 access to over 100 rounds on you. I mean, now, might jam up on you, though. You got to take care of them, man. You got to lubricate them, and, and one thing you don't want to do is go cheap when it comes to weapons, man. I mean, of course they work, but a lot of times the reliability is in, just want to get the right one, man. That's all.
Caps and were muzzle loaders, with the user pouring black powder into each individual chamber, ramming a bullet down on top of it, and then placing a percussion cap at the rear of the chamber. While still a very lengthy, complicated reload process was required to fully ready the weapon for firing, it allowed several shots at a time.
You're basically, you're just manufacturing. I mean, you're building each round in the chamber as you're, loading it, because you got the percussion cap and the, it wasn't until someone thought to put that all together and make it one single bullet that's crazy. That's crazy, man.
Improvement over previous versions. Even more importantly, however, was the fact that because the bullets were loaded into the firing cylinder and not through the barrel could be rifled. In traditional smoothbore weapons, the barrel was not rifled, so as to allow a soldier to shove the tight-fitting bullet down the barrel faster and more easily. It allowed for more expedient reloading, but ultimately led to terrible accuracy. Revolvers, however, solved this problem, as the bullet did not have to be forced down the rifled barrel and instead was loaded into the rear of it automatically. Revolvers would get their day in the sun during the American Civil War, when they were used to devastating effect on the battlefield on both sides of the conflict. However, by the end of the war, a new revolution was already brewing, building off Samuel Colt's revolver to produce the first truly modern ammunition. In 1854, French inventor Eugene Le Faucheux developed the Le Faucheux Model 1854, a revolver which used metallic cartridges instead of traditional loose powder and ball ammunition. While metallic cartridges had been around since the early 1800s, the Le Faucheux 1854 was the first firearm to utilize a refined version of the cartridge and make it popular. The adaptation of a metallic cartridge over powder and ball led to even greater accuracy, fewer malfunctions, and exponentially faster reloads. By carrying the powder necessary for ignition inside its own cartridge along with the bullet, metallic cartridges allowed for extremely fast reloads. Revolvers remained largely single-action affairs until the Europeans began building double-action weapons in the late 19th century. A double-action weapon allowed the user to both cock the hammer and fire the weapon with a single trigger pull, while a single-action weapon still required manual cocking of the hammer before firing the weapon. Traditionally, firefights are games of inches and seconds, and double-action weapons quickly became preferable to single-action. Being left behind by European manufacturers, in 1889, Colt introduced the Model 1889, the first modern double-action revolver. The 1889 featured a swing-out cylinder as opposed to a top brake or side-loading cylinder, while
Yeah, those top brakes, man, that's old school. I actually had a 22, the top brake, which It's wild. It's wild, bro. Just it's the subtlest things that make the biggest differences, you know?
Outbreak cylinders allowed for the ejection of all empty shells simultaneously and exposed all chambers for fast reloading. It also necessitated the gun's frame being hinged in two halves, weakening it.
Yeah, because that break action, yeah, it's weakening it, is, you know, over time through wear and tear, and it's also just, yeah, I mean, you don't want any, you want full stability in the frame, like you don't want, but it's also a lot slower. I feel like, I don't know. Then yeah, it's way slower than, you know, the side popping out the side and just dumping them real quick, throwing them in. But yeah, it was fun though. It was a lot of fun.
Over repeated firings, the stress the weapon endured wound up warping the frame given its weakness and negatively affecting accuracy. Side-loading cylinders avoided this problem, but forced the user to eject and reload one single chamber at a time. The swing-out cylinder, however, took the best features from both designs to produce a winner still used today. As the Revolver was being refined, the roots for what would become the semi-automatic pistol were being laid down. In 1883, Hiram Maxim introduced a recoil-powered machine gun made possible by metallic cartridges. Before this, machine guns were powered by manual energy, with the infamous Gatling gun requiring a hand crank to load a round for fire, work the firing mechanism, extract the spent cartridge, and load a new one in. Maxim's weapon harnessed the recoil energy of the firing itself to achieve the same process, making firing faster and requiring fewer crew to operate. Maxim immediately brought this idea to the world of handguns, but due to the smaller amounts of energy involved, the weapons never proved practical and were prone to malfunction. Soon, though, gun manufacturers turned to harnessing the energy of the explosive gases involved in the firing process, resulting in the world's first semi-automatic pistol, the Salvatore Dormus. This weapon harnessed the rapidly expanding gases from the burning propellant to reload the weapon with a fresh round as it fired. The effect was nearly instantaneous, as new semi-automatic pistols offered even
I mean, genius as well, man. Come on, the mechanism, the entire mechanism as a whole. Genius. But I want to know you guys' opinions on this, though.
Revolvers. The real revolution, however, was in the fact that semi-automatic pistols were not limited in their capacity by the number of cylinders they could accommodate, but rather by the practical size of the magazine attached to it. This allowed semi-automatic weapons to double or even triple their capacity versus the revolver. Early pistols, however, were prone to misfires and stoppages, given that they were mechanically more complex pieces of machinery than the relatively simple revolver. It wouldn't be until almost the 20th century that the pistols would become commercially successful, with Hugo Bouchard's C93, which utilized a 7.65mm cartridge. Despite being the first truly mechanically reliable pistol, the weapon was very large and bulky, making it impractical for battlefield use. However, some saw the use after modification with a screw-on wooden stock, turning them into pistol carbines. In 1896, Paul Mauser introduced the C96 Mauser, which would become the first commercially successful.
Yeah, there it is. That's a bad mamma jamma right there. One of the first, like, iconic, you know, well-known
pistol to be used in a wide capacity at war, with the magazine holding up to 20 rounds and a 7.63 cartridge.
20 rounds.
The Mauser was used extensively in the South African War of 1899 to 1902. In 1896, American gunsmith John Browning would find success working with the Belgian firm of Fabrique Nationale.
Browning,
his
man.
Browning M1900 featured the first use of a slide, but it was his Colt M1911 that would see his name.
The 1911, bro, a god amongst, you know, the firearms, but also considered to be a fairly old school weapon. You know, it's heavy. It's a heavier firearm, but reliable is all get out, bro. Reliable as can be.
They become legend with the development.
You know,
Jackpot.
As long as you're taking care of it properly.
Of a weapon still used by many modern militaries today. It wouldn't be until World War II that the pistol would begin to overtake the revolver in popularity, however. While revolvers were still being issued en masse, militaries around the world were starting to prefer the greater capacity and firing rate of the pistol, with Germany designing the Walther P38, a double-action pistol that could be carried loaded and ready to fire without the risk of accidental discharge. As handguns increased in popularity, revolvers themselves were changed so that both weapons could use the same cartridge.
You know what, man? You ain't got to choose. You just get one of each. You're good. You are good. You're set to go.
cartridges. Today, nearly every military and police department in the world has made semi-automatic pistols standards over revolvers. So, which is better? The question is a nuanced one, and personal preference as well as expected use all play a part. Revolvers are generally...
Yeah, they all play a part. So basically, there's no wrong answers, right? No need to, you know, whatever you like is right for you. Everybody has a different, it's just your preference, really, at the end of the day. So, you know,
heavier than pistols, which can make them more exhausting to carry for battlefield troops already loaded down with nearly 100 pounds of armor, ammunition, equipment, and batteries. Yeah. If you've never been there, believe us, every pound counts. However, the added mass makes the weapon more stable and helps to absorb the recoil, which can help minimize loss of sight picture when firing. A pistol, by comparison, is far more lightweight, often made with lightweight alloys and even some plastic parts. This makes the weapon more prone to being bucked when firing, but also makes it much more comfortable to carry for long amounts of time. Revolvers typically feature a much heavier trigger pull than pistols, which can make them more difficult to use for weaker or less trained individuals. A pistol's light trigger pull can be much more comfortable for most individuals and helps to increase accuracy. Where the revolver shines, however, is in ease of use. Operating a revolver is as simple as opening the cylinder, loading ammunition, closing the cylinder, and squeezing the trigger. Pistols have the added complexity of racking a slide after loading a magazine in, a step that can be lethal for a shooter in a high-stress situation who may, in the panic of a firefight, forget to do it if they're not already carrying the weapon with a round chambered. It may seem like a silly mistake, but high-stress lethal situations can make momentary dummies out of even the most well-trained individual. A revolver's ability to be immediately...
Yeah, I can see that, because that's one thing. It's like, you got it on safety, but you don't want it loaded, carrying it, right? I mean, yeah, the magazine's loaded, but there's not one in the chamber. But that could be your life, because when the time comes you actually do need it, and there's not one in the chamber, you might not have that 2-3 seconds to, you know, cock that puppy back and get it ready. So that's always something, you know, everyone, you know, think about, because it quite literally could be lethal.
Fired can also be an advantage, with most pistols not being carried cocked and loaded for safety's sake. Revolvers, however, are outgunned,
for safety's sake.
Key areas. The first is capacity. A revolver is typically limited to 6 or 7 rounds, with most pistols giving the option of at least 15. This means a pistol user has over twice the firing capacity of a revolver user before needing to reload, which, even if your only firearms experience...
These are things I said in the beginning of the video.
Call of Duty is a fact that even the most novice shooter can immediately appreciate. Revolvers are also keenly outmatched when it comes to the reload. Reloading a revolver requires an individual to completely disengage their target and turn their full attention to the act of reloading. While speed loaders exist to circumvent the issue of manually reloading,
you can keep your eyes on the target. I mean, drop it, pull it out, you're ready to go again. You know,
chamber, a user still
you don't have to stop and look and like
forced to turn their attention almost fully to the act of reloading. A pistol, on the other hand, features extremely quick and easy reloading, with experienced shooters learning to reload on the fly while never taking their eyes off target. An absolutely life-saving advantage the revolver can't match. Pistols are more complex machines than revolvers, and this can leave them vulnerable to misfires or stoppages. But with well-manufactured modern firearms, the rate of incidents between...
That's what I meant to say, the well-manufactured, that's it. You know, because cheaper, I've seen just a lot of times ammunition too. Ammunition has a big effect on this. People don't realize, like, a lot of times jams and all that can be caused by the ammunition. Just dirty ammunition, just dirties up the gun and the barrel, the mechanism so fast that it ends up jamming because it gets gunked up so quick. There's a lot of things too, you know, bad percussion caps, there could be duds. It's just, you want to get good ammunition as well. So
between the two types of weapons is nearly negligible.
That being said, you guys let me know what you think, man, what you would carry. But other than that, let me know what you want to see me react to next in the comment section below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. I'm gonna catch you on the next one, man. Y'all stay safe. Stay out the way. I'm gone.